Hey guys, today on JD Cars, we're stepping the performance up a notch with an aFe POWER Magnum FORCE Stage 2 air intake. Today is a very exciting day here on JD Cars. This is our first big sponsorship video. So first and foremost, I'd like to say a big thank you to Bavarian Autosport, which is currently the world's leading BMW parts and accessories website in the world. So if you're in the market for any sort of BMW parts or accessories at all, be sure to go check out Bavarian Autosport at bavauto.com. Additionally, the link to this intake will be in the description below. And also a huge thank you to aFe for sending me this intake. So one last thing before we get into the installation here. I took the car out yesterday and collected some pre-installation data. So after we install this intake, we have a baseline measure to see how much we've improved the performance of the car. So without any further ado, let's jump into it here. Let's see what we've got here. Some miscellaneous hardware. This is the top cover, which I believe has a pretty cool carbon fiber print on it. Here's the air filter tube. Here's the main housing. We've got a filter, which I believe is pre-oiled. This is the throttle body adapter. Some instructions, of course, and they also included a license plate cover and some cool stickers. So this is everything you should receive in the box. Before we get to install this awesome new intake, we have to remove the old one. The first step being removing these two bolts with a 10mm socket. Next, we'll have to come in behind the air intake here, and we'll need to disconnect the mass airflow sensor. We'll also have to loosen up the hose clamp on the intake hose so we can remove the intake. To disconnect the mass airflow sensor, come in here with a small flathead screwdriver, pry up the tab on top here, and disconnect it from the intake. Next, with a larger flathead, we'll come in here and loosen up this hose clamp. And lastly, pop this collar off with a small flathead, and then we'll be all set to remove the intake. Also, if you want to make your life easier, I suggest removing these two T20 screws on the front of the snorkel, and then pull the snorkel out of the way. At this point, you should be able to lift the intake. You may have to rotate it back and forth to get it to come off the hose. Additionally, we're going to be removing the intake tube. Simply loosen up this hose clamp here, and you should be able to pull the tube right off. And now the fun begins. Before we can install the intake, we have to take the two rubber grommets and install them like so. Now we can drop it into place here, being conscious of the two holes that we need to secure it in. Now we'll take two included 10mm bolts and two washers to secure the housing into place. The other fastening point is hidden right under this lip, and we'll have to tighten that down with a wrench. Now we need to remove the mass airflow sensor from the old intake using a T20 Torx bit. Now we'll reinstall the mass airflow sensor on the new intake tube using this included gasket and the included M4 screws. You'll want the connector end to be facing this end of the tube. Be careful not to over tighten this. Now we'll install this clamp on the intake tube. Just loosely tighten it for now. Don't tighten it down fully just yet. Now I'll grab our filter here. Wow, that looks nice. Very nice filter. Pre-oiled from aFe. We'll get our hose clamp around the filter here and we'll install it onto the tube. And now we'll tighten down this hose clamp. Now before we can install the intake tube in here, we have to install this throttle body adapter. Take note of this little notch at the top here. There's a corresponding notch on the throttle body that you'll need to match that up to. We can now slide the intake tube through the housing and over the throttle body adapter. Now before we can tighten down that hose clamp back there, we have to secure the intake tube in place with the two other 10mm bolts, the washers, and the lock washers. We can now tighten down this hose clamp and reconnect the mass airflow sensor connector. Now, because of the power steering fluid reservoir, it can be very difficult to get in there. So Simply remove the 2 bolts securing it, lift up the reservoir, and move it out of the way. Then you have much better access to connect the mass airflow sensor right here. At this point, the installation is complete, and we can install this sweet carbon fiber print cover on top of the filter. Simply use the included hardware and a 3/16 hex bit. Last thing to do here is reinstall the snorkel. Now the installation is fully complete. So if you want to hear what this sounds like after installation, and if you're curious about performance gains, be sure to stay tuned for my upcoming video. So that wraps up this video. Again, I'd like to pay a huge thank you to Bavarian Autosport and aFe Power. Be sure to check out the link in the description below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like below and subscribe if you've yet to do so. Thanks guys, I'll see you next time on JD Cars.